All right, we are live again. We're gonna try to do this again. Um, Hopefully, Rishi, some folks will be able to find us. I think this shows up as a new event, so we'll invite people to share once they join. In fact, I'll try to pull up LinkedIn and see if I can add this new one to that one. And if I can't, we won't bother with it. That's right.
Okay.
Let's just go ahead and have our conversation. Hopefully we'll have some people join us. And if not, we can share this recording after the fact. And Rishi, I may have you back. You had about 40 people, I think, signed up to hear you talk, and
I know, I did.
now they're gonna miss out on the live event. But hopefully they'll be able to join us. So Rishi, before we had our technical difficulty, we were talking a little bit about St. Patrick's Day. And where I was going with that was I wanted to give you an opportunity to more formally introduce yourself. So do you mind taking a minute and introducing yourself a little bit more formally?
Yeah, no problem. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on here, Chris. It's such a privilege. I've been following you for a long time now, and it's great to be here. So thank you, first of all. Happy St. Paddy's Day to you. I think you asked me earlier on if I'm wearing green. I am wearing green. I think this is kind of dark green. I can see
Excellent.
you are in a way as well.
I'm trying to pass for this as green. It's probably a bit of a blue green, but so hopefully they'll give me credit for it.
But it's a privilege to be here. Formally, I'm a lead sales engineer at Ultrix. Ultrix is all about end-to-end self-serve analytics, and currently, I'm responsible for scaling out business in the Nordics. So very excited to be here. Very excited to be working in the Nordics, and I'm loving pre-sales every day.
And you had mentioned to me that you're scaling up the Nordics, and right now you're doing a lot of work, maybe beyond the typical sales engineer, because I guess there's some open headcount on the sales side. So what sort of challenges have you been sort of facing there?
What's really interesting is I'm really being pushed outside of my comfort zone
Hmm.
as your traditional sales engineer or pre-sales professional. A couple of examples are I'm having to go out and do prospecting. Now, who would have thought it? An SE going out, helping with sales cadence, sending out emails, going to speak to, current customers and accounts to
Yeah,
try and do some prospecting. You wouldn't
yeah,
have thought it a number of years ago, right? And I
yeah.
think what's helped me is what I do day in and day out. I treat it as if I'm running my own company or as if I'm running my own business. And
Hmm.
it's come naturally to me now, you
That's
know. So
That is
definitely.
really that is. And by the way, I'm sure any sales engineer listening to this would be very intimidated by the idea of having to do prospecting. Was that a little intimidating for you at first?
It was, and I tell you what, it was interesting. So I've been looking after the Nordics since the start of the year, and what's intimidating is like, well, is the customer even going to read my email? Am I
Hmm.
coming across in a presentable way? Does this email look good? Am I overselling, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
The customer does want to read a salesy email,
yeah,
especially, a new customer or prospect.
yeah.
I used to hate salespeople back in the day. I think I mentioned it to you. I absolutely hated salespeople. So prior to Ultrix, I've worked in the business. So I've worked for a few large investment banks,
Yeah,
and I've worked in some large and small consulting firms as well. And what
yeah.
I hated was that concept of coming across too salesy.
Hmm.
And when I'm prospecting, I'm very, very self-aware. I
Yeah,
don't want to come across as I'm your typical salesperson.
yep,
I want to come across as, hey, you know what? We've done business with you in the past. This is who I am, or this is who I am. I want to come and help you out in the Nordics. What do you think? Let's have a conversation.
yeah.
Take really, really take backstep approach.
Yeah.
And guess what? I absolutely love salespeople, by the way. I've been a sales engineer at Ultrix for a while, and I call them my work family. My
Mm.
perception of salespeople has completely changed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and now that you've had a chance to have to actually do some of what they do, I suspect it gives you a great deal more appreciation for some of the challenges they face. The reality is as a sales engineer, we're sort of, quote, invited into the party, right? We're invited into the engagement as the expert, right? And so there's a certain sort of comfort zone there where if you're doing prospecting and reaching out, you don't have that comfort zone. As I like to say, instead of being invited to the party, you have to get the party started, right? That's a completely and totally different set of muscles. Incidentally, Amanda Bertucci said it's working now. So Amanda, thank you very much. Hopefully, and by the way, if anybody else managed to find their way back to our session, and if you care to say hello, please do. There's another shout out from Callum Williams. So excellent, Callum. Glad you joined us. Thanks for that heads up. So by the way, if any of you have any questions for myself or Rishi, or just want to say hello, please do so. We had a little bit of a hiccup when we first started, but hey, this is what being a sales engineer is all about, right? Sometimes you just got to roll with the punches and figure it out, right?
And exactly,
So
the show must go on, right? That's the thing.
indeed, very well said. So Rishi, let's talk about this a little further. How did you make the transition from? I think you said you worked for some large organizations. You were a consultant for a while. When and how did you make the transition to sales to pre-sales?
My story is pretty much very similar to your story. So reading your book, which I've just got right here, by the way, I was a consultant for a number of years, and I've worked in the business as well. So like I mentioned, I've worked for some banks, I've worked for telco, media, nearly every business vertical industry.
Mm,
And one thing I liked about working consultancy was actually helping our customers.
mm,
What I didn't like, essentially, or you can say I got a little bit bored, was spending a long time on customer engagement. So one thing which is very attractive about the sales engineer role is, like I mentioned to you earlier, I'm working with 5 to 6 customers every day,
yeah,
short, sharp, dynamic engagements,
yeah,
and I can actually see results very quickly.
yeah.
Whereas when you're working with the large and the
Mm,
smaller professional service companies, and now no offense, they're absolutely great. They do a great job. Ultrix works with some amazing partners out there, but after a number of years, it wasn't for me. So I wanted some new challenges, and
yeah.
the SE role gives me that challenge every day.
Yeah, yeah, and it's very similar to my situation. I mean, as you may recall from the book, I mean, I was a consultant, and I would get on these projects, and I'd have the enthusiasm, and excitement for about 3 months. But then after about 3 months, and like I was sort of mentally ready to move on, but my customers never wanted me to go anywhere, and I sort of felt like I was trapped, right? And I was working with a number of people that their perfect world was a 3 to 5 year contract. And
Mhm.
and to me, a 3 to 5 year contract felt like a jail sentence almost, right? Whereas as a pre-sales engineer, like I said, we're sort of airdropped in, right? We parachute in, we meet with the team, we give the presentation, we give the demonstration, we get people excited, and then we can move on to the next one. And to your point, we can touch a lot of people along the way. Now, remind me, were you an expert in the software that then you went to work for the vendor? Was that sort of your transition?
That's how it worked. So I've been using Ultrix for a number of years now, probably since 2016.
Yeah,
So I was an ex-user from the business, and I didn't even know what an SE was. I think I mentioned it to you the other day. I thought it was to do with electrical engineering. So I built a good relationship with the vendor, with Ultrix, and they were
yeah,
like, "Well, we have this role," and I was like, "Okay, we'll just see how it goes."
yeah,
And I think it was my experience with the software application and also working with the consultancies or the various companies within the business
yeah,
that actually helped me get that role and that opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's so good to see. So you've got communities like the Pre-Sales Collective, which we can talk about in a moment, opening up opportunities to people who are graduating and branching out the name of pre-sales or sales engineering, because we all know, I mean, there'll be anyone on this call, whether we've got customers, salespeople, SEs, we play an important role when it
Mm,
comes to selling anything.
mm.
If a rep comes to me and says that they can go and make that sale or close that deal on their own, um, I'd like to wish them good luck, because they probably can. But will it bring value to the customer? Will it help the customer achieve their business outcomes? Will it be a strategic, large deal or opportunity? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So, I mentioned to you the other day that one thing which I love about the role of the SE is helping the customer realize their business outcomes. We're not just selling them something, we're helping them, we're their trusted partner. And I think that really attracts me to the pre-sales profession, like every day. Absolutely.
And that's, I have to say, that's, if I can use the term, a very mature perspective for someone who's only been in the role for a few years. And I'm inspired to ask, did you have that perspective right out of the gate when you became a sales engineer? Or did it take you a little while to realize that my role is more than just demonstrating product, and it's really helping them that envision outcomes, right?
Mhm.
And envision and see how we can get them to where they're trying to go.
Really good question. So it didn't come to me straight away. So when I joined, I was still that consultant.
Mm,
And I think it took some time in terms of showing the customer or the prospect the art of the possible. And I would spend hours out of work, out of the office, trying to build the project and the solution for the prospects.
mm.
And my previous, like, my managers from then were like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, well, I've just spent 10 hours trying to convert this Python code into an Alteryx workflow." And they were like, "Number one is the customer should be doing this. You should be allowing the customer to do this. We're there just to show them the art of the possible." It's like teasing them,
Yeah.
giving them a little bit of that magic for what we're trying to sell to them, or let them realize what the value is of what you're trying to sell and how it will achieve their outcomes, and watch the penny drop. Make them get that realization.
Mm,
So we're just there to guide them. So I would spend hours, and I speak to pre-sales professionals and SEs who are just coming into the industry. And one advice I always give them: don't spend so many hours trying to be that consultant and produce the products and the solutions and complete their projects for them, because they're never going to realize it. You have to be their guide, and they have to be doing it, and we should be advising them. And that's one thing which I had to learn the hard way. And the other factors were, well, I would have sales managers come to me, or pre-sales managers ask me, "What's your influence?" I had to understand this concept of how,
mm,
the number of hours I've influenced a deal or an opportunity. And I
mm,
would be like, "Well, I've spent about 30 hours on this task or exercise." And they'll be like, "How big is a deal?" It's only about $5,000, very small when I first started. And they were like, "Well, your influence was like a couple of cents or a couple of pounds."
mm,
And I had to get my mind around that. And thirdly, with all of this, working with 5 or 6 customers every day as somebody new to the SE world, it took its toll. So it would be like, well, I've learned a lot of lessons from back then. And I tell you what, any SEs on here, they'll kind of like agree with me. When you get burnt, you never forget. And
mm.
it's those scars and those wounds that you'll always refer to, where I've learned so much from that. And it's been an amazing journey, to be honest.
That was, you said so many things in that few minutes, Rishi, that I want to double back on. Incidentally, let me just take a pause, folks. I'm speaking with Rishi Kapoor from Alteryx, and of course, I want to invite you to ask any questions or say hello. Oscar Para has just said great point. I'm not sure which of the great points he was referring to, because you made a lot of them. There's a couple observations that I'm inclined to sort of quote double click on, Rishi. The first one is this notion of, I think, for those of us who enter pre-sales from a consulting role, from a quote post-sales professional services role, I do think that we tend to still wear that consultant hat, which is to say, we try to solve all the problems, right? We try to deliver the project, as opposed to, as you said, I think you used the term teaser. What comes to mind for me is the movie trailer, right? Like, let's not, write the movie script for them, right? Let's just show them the movie trailer and give them, help them become convinced that our solution will actually help them build the movie themselves. And you mentioned sort of being burned, or the scars. Can you give an example of something that maybe happened along your 3.5 years that was really sort of eye-opening for you? Like, okay, wow, that is not the right approach to take.
I think, oh, I've got so many examples. So, I've got a lot, I've had a lot of successes in my time so far, but then I've learned from a lot of lessons, like I mentioned. I have so many examples. There's this concept of trying to show the whole harbor tour, or try and give the whole harbor tour.
Of course.
Or one example was, trying to complete everything for the customer. And I think that was a big lesson learned, or an example that I refer to all the time. Now, that can actually be a good thing, or even not so good thing as well. It's like a double-edged sword. So if you want to try and complete everything for the customer, you've got good intentions. You want to help them finish their project. You want to help them reach their deadlines. You want to help them as much as possible, but it might not be what the customer wants. So back in the day when I used to demo, I would literally be stuck on demoing that one thing that I've prepared. Now, I'll give you an example. With Ultrix, it's all about connecting to multiple data sources and doing different things within our platform.
Yeah.
And I would be like, well, I'm going to show you how to connect to Excel, just for an example. And the customer was like, I don't use Excel. I don't connect to Excel. I connect to SQL Server, Oracle. And I'll be like, okay, so today we're going to be showing you how to connect to Excel, and we're going to go and do X, Y, and Z. Down the line in the conversation, I'll be like, right now, I'm going to show you some advanced analytics. And the customer would be like, number one is, I don't connect to Excel. I'm just going to say this again, and I have no need to do any advanced analytics. And I would still stick to what I had prepared, because I had spent about 10 hours preparing that one meeting. I wasn't being agile. I wasn't being flexible. I didn't even think that the customer is the one who should be driving this conversation. I should be doing the discovery every step of the way, and it's all about validating what the customer is going to be using the software for. And nowadays I'm like, you know what, forget about my script, forget about the prep. You want to connect to SQL Server, let's go and connect to SQL Server. And you know what, you can be open and honest with the customers. You can be like, well, this is live, and the data may not relate to what I'm showing you, but let's just go with it. And actually, it's a really good approach, because it actually will help your relationship as a sales engineer with a customer. And more often than not, the customer, the prospect, starts to sort of trust you as a go-to partner and advisor. They don't want to speak to salespeople. In our field, they want to speak to trusted partners. And there are a few examples where I refer back to all the time, and I'm like, I cannot believe I did that. I seriously can't. But you know what? We have to go through these motions, and I'm sure you have as well. I pretty know you have anyway. So
Well, and I mean, you've read. I know you've read the book, and you're a big fan, which I appreciate. The truth is, the 6 habits that I wrote about were born out of mistakes that I recognized in myself, and I needed to find a better way, and so nothing could be further than the truth, or closer to the truth. Like, you know, in fact, the example that you were sharing, where you go in, you've spent all this time working on preparing this demo. You get in front of the customer, and they make it very clear that that's actually not something that they're interested in. And without saying it, you're basically saying, too bad for you. I spent time on this, and by golly, you're going to see it, whether you like it or not. Now, we don't use those words, but in essence, that's what we're saying. By the way, I have to just call a shout out to Amanda Berducci. She said she liked the movie trailer analogy. So, always appreciate that feedback. Thank you, Amanda. There's another thing that you said that again, I just sort of want to double click on, and that is, we need to be prepared to let go of our agenda. Because look, we should be prepared going into every meeting, right? And we should have some idea of what the objective is, what the agenda is, and we're prepared and we have a plan. But when we get in, and maybe there's some new folks in the room, right? Maybe something's changed since the last time we talked to them, right? And they say, well, actually, what we're primarily, or maybe we just misunderstood, right? What we're primarily interested in is this. To your point, we need to be prepared to release our plan, release our agenda, right? And go where one of my favorite words, there's phrases, feed them what they're hungry for, right? Feed them what they're hungry
I love that.
Right? But you got to pay attention to what they're hungry for. The other thing that's interesting to me, Rishi, and hearing you speak is you mentioned the amount of time that, for example, that you would spend preparing for a meeting or a demo. And something that I discovered, and I'm curious to see if this resonates with you as well, is that in those moments, in those situations where maybe I was spending a lot of time preparing, I think in my mind, I thought, I'm doing this for the customer. But the truth was that actually I was doing this for me, and I was doing this to show how smart I was and to demonstrate my expertise. And in fact, I was being probably more selfish than, quote, other-centered, as I like to talk about. Does that resonate with you at all? Do you realize that the shift that you made was really a shifting towards focusing more on the customer?
Of course, and whilst you were just talking about your stories, when I used to be in that sort of mode, guess what used to happen? I used to stop listening to the customer. It's as if the customer's not even on the call or the customer's on mute, and I'm just going with what I've prepared. So I'm like, here's this great solution that I've prepared for you. I'm not even going to listen to you where you're saying you're telling me that actually your requirements have changed,
Yeah.
or your data's changed, or actually your outcome has changed.
Yeah.
You end up actually just not even listening to the customer because you're listening to yourself. Because as an SE, I would be like, okay, I'm going to have to do this, and I'm going to have to do that, and I'm going to have to do that. And didn't even used to look at who's on the call. Oh shoot, the customer, the analyst's manager's on the call. So, I never used to think about validating or repeating. Now, validation and repeating the information that you're already aware of and know is so powerful because it gives you that confirmation. It doesn't matter if you ask those questions or if the AE has already asked those questions to that customer or prospect, you're going to get new information or you're just getting confirmation. And, I think summarizing is very important as well. And what I've realized over time is that call isn't for you, it's for the prospect. You're just there to guide them and show them the art of the possible. At the end of the day, it's not for my satisfaction. I would get satisfied in their satisfaction, and what I've learned over time is it's about their business outcomes. They can go to, it's like the analogy of you can go to the shops and buy another branded cereal. Well, they can go and get another software application, like there's so many competitors out there. What differentiates us as pre-sales professionals is actually helping them realize the business outcomes as a result of using what we're trying to sell, and it's like I love your concept of we're trying to sell them a shovel, but they don't want a hole. They want something else. And one thing I've learned is actually finding out what happens after that meeting. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's so important. Well, okay, great. We've helped you build this process out, or we've helped you understand the value with X, Y, and Z. What happens next? How
Yeah,
is this going to help you and your manager and your team? How is it going to help your company?
yeah,
You know, somebody might be like, well, why shouldn't SE do some research in the company that you're going to be working for or helping, or that the customer belongs to? It's
yeah,
so important to see what the business impact is.
yeah.
And I've realized that over time, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I have to say, Rishi, it is so satisfying for me to hear you say what you said just a moment ago, which is it's not about us, it's about them. I mean, if anybody listening to this takes nothing else away from this conversation, at the end of the day, that's it. I mean, that's and honestly, I think when we first started our conversation, you were sharing about how, as an SE, you're in a unique situation where you're doing some activities that are typically the responsibility of maybe the BDRs or the account executives. You're doing some prospecting. You're meeting with customers, maybe existing customers, doing well baby visits, as I like to say. Um, but honestly, I think that notion, that perspective of, hey, this is about you, this is not about me, right, is what makes, and honestly, a lot of sales engineers, I think, just almost sort of naturally take that approach. That's what makes us effective in our roles. Again, Rishi, I'm just going to press our own pause button again and say hello to anybody who may be with us. We had a little bit of a technical hiccup earlier, but as good sales engineers, we kept on trucking and figured out a workaround. So thank you so much for joining us. If you have any comments or questions for myself or Rishi, I invite you to ask. We can't see you, so we don't know who's out there, but by all means, I want to invite you to say hello if you're with us. Rishi, you've shared so many insightful ideas and thoughts. Anything else in particular that you've picked up along the way, that really has shifted the way you approach your role?
Certainly. And I can say that I haven't been successful on my own.
Mm.
Nobody closes a deal on their own. If they say that they've done that, then again, I wish them good luck, but I think they're wrong. Bring the whole village with you.
Yeah,
So, you've got the AE and the SE combination. You've got a great partnership. From time to time, I actually tell my managers internally that I'm a bit selfish when it comes to my accounts and my deals. I will go to the value engineering team. I'll bring in the solutions architect team. I'll get the, post-sales consultant involved in a
yeah,
pre-sale stage. Now, why do you do that? Because the village will actually help you drive that deal. I want to bring in post sales before the deal actually closes because I want the CSM to build a relationship with a customer. We have to go through those motions, but yeah, I've got a whole village behind here. It's not just me. And I would advise anyone in pre-sales or the SE role, don't do it on your own. I'm not an expert or jack of all trades. I may
yeah,
be, an expert in certain areas, but
yeah,
I know when to bring in, the specific experts in, because at the end of the day, it's going to help the customer, it's going to help the deal. It's not
yeah,
really going to help me if I can't do that.
yeah,
And it takes a village, and that really helped me. And I'm going to do that again with the Nordics. I'm getting to know the region. I want to scale it out. I want to make customers successful. I want to make Ultrix successful. I can't do it on my own.
yeah,
So, that's something else which has really helped me over the
yeah.
number of the years.
Yeah. Well, and I really value that comment, Rishi, because look, if I'm fully honest with myself, when I first got into this role, I think, I don't think, I know I had a pretty big ego, right? I mean, I was the foremost expert in this one technology, in this one area, right? And I think we all sort of want to, view ourselves and see ourselves as, the rock star sales engineer, right? But to your point, it only takes a few times of falling flat on your face in front of the customer, or, sort of, stepping in it with maybe a colleague, that you realize that, what, like, this does take a team. Sales is a team sport. Habit number one: partner with your sales counterpart. Sales is a team sport. We are in this together, right?
100%.
And just like a moment ago, you said, look, it's all about the customer, right? I'm going to say it's all about the team, right? One of my guests, last year, he used to say, there is no me without you, right? I mean, what a great attitude to take, right? So I just love that you've discovered that along the way. By the way, unfortunately, we don't see a name, but somebody sort of double clicked on the concept we were sharing. It's all about them. And yes, I mean, discovery is so critical. Listen, and another any key points on how you're doing the transition from pre-sales to CSM, post-sales, and tech support? Great question. Unfortunately, we don't see the name, but I certainly have a thought. But before I respond, Rishi, by the way, Callum Williams also shared a comment, so just want to show him a little love. Callum, thank you, and no doubt, the customer needs to be successful long term. But what about this question, the handoff, the transition from pre-sales to customer success to post-sales? Is there anything in particular that you've discovered that works for you, or that you guys are doing at Alteryx?
Yeah, I mean, one thing which is important is introducing us as a team to the customer. So let's just quickly go through the life cycle. The customer or the prospect will speak to the BDR, the SDR, the AE or the rep will get involved, the SE will get involved, and at that point, I would bring in the CSM, or I would bring in the tech support team. Now, from my perspective, that deal's closed. I've got the logo, I've got the revenue influence. Technically, I don't really need to care about it. But if I think strategically, I should care about that whole relationship. So I introduce these individuals as your account team. So it's not like, oh, hey, see you later. It's like, hello, Mr. Customer, I want to build a relationship with you. Let me bring in my colleague, Chris, who's going to be your relationship manager, or is going to be your technical account manager. We're going to be working together.
Yep.
It's not like I'm leaving the account now, or I've closed this deal, I'm going to move on to another team. It's
Absolutely.
more like, well, let's work together as one team and let's continue to work with you. So my role won't stop. I'll bring in the CSM as I know that, this deal is about to close, and they're going to get involved to provide what we call premium success or post-sale support. I'll introduce the technical account manager, who may be somebody from tech support, and I'll be like, well, you know what, we're going to help you install the software we've just sold to you. Let me introduce you to your go-to person in tech support, and they're going to be strategically aligned to the account. And using these keywords, strategically and aligned, gives that comfort factor to the customer that, hey, you're not just leaving me alone now. I've just purchased this software product and you're not going away. You're actually coming with me on my journey, and you're going to stay with us. And yeah, we're going to stay with you as long as possible, not because we want to make money, because which sales organization doesn't want to make money? But we actually want to help you achieve what you're trying to resolve. Now, if we don't do that, if we don't want to do that, guess what? The customer's not going to renew. They would have realized that actually their outcomes haven't been resolved. They're going to move on. They're going to go to the competitors.
Yeah, brilliant. But by the way, that was Carlos. I hope I'm saying it right, Villanua, hopefully. But Carlos, thank you for that question. And it's interesting, Rishi. I'm inclined to double click on one of the things you said, and then I'll just share an additional thought as well. First of all, I love the fact that you used the word strategic alignment. In fact, as you were talking, when you said those words, I have to admit, even my ears sort of perked up a little bit. But here's the key point. The words we use matter. For anybody out there who might be listening, folks, I can't emphasize this enough, particularly as sales engineers. When we're presenting the solution, when we're demonstrating our platforms and our capabilities, be very intentional with your words. The words that we use make all the difference in the world. in the word. And by the way, that example, the strategic alignment, that was a perfect example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we are here, strategic means like big picture, long term, right? And alignment, we're in this together. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
The only other thought that comes to mind for the question in terms of transitioning to pre-sales, there's from pre-sales to post-sales, there are products coming to the market designed to help pre-sales manage their engagements, capture all their information, execute and follow playbooks, and then transition all that information into customer success. So I'm sure there are some folks out there that use Salesforce and probably other CRMs, but the truth is that a lot of those platforms aren't specifically or precisely designed for pre-sales. So I happen to be working on a study, a report on the tools that are in the space. That's actually going to be released next month. I'm working on that with Carrie Sokolsky. So anyway, for any of you who might be interested in tools specifically for pre-sales teams to aid in that handover to post-sales, be on the lookout for that report. Rishi, you've been so gracious with your time, sir. And I know we were interrupted for a minute there, but we've certainly been at it for about 35 minutes. I did want to take a few minutes and talk about the Pre-Sales Collective and some of the things that you're doing there. But before we get there, anything as you reflect on the sort of your three, I'm going to call it your 3.5-year journey into pre-sales. Is there anything else that sort of stands out to you as a significant lesson learned that has sort of changed where you are now, or where you were when you first started to where you are now significantly?
I think it's very important to stay humble. At the end of the day, I've had successes, I've had failures. It's important to learn from the failures, but being humble and kind of like keeps me grounded and keeps you grounded. Be grateful for what you've got. Appreciate the team around you. You can't do it on your own. Seriously, you can't. And at the end of the day, take each day as it comes. So there's been times where I've lost deals, and guess what? It's not only the fault of the SE. It's so important. There's probably other reasons why that deal didn't, close successfully. But then it sounds cheesy, but tomorrow's another day, you know. But being humble is really important. Being grounded, knowing your roots. I appreciate everyone I work with. Literally, be thankful. Like I said, I'm so thankful for the village. I'm thankful for every expert that I bring in and I talk to and I build relationships with, and it's really important.
I
I think.
so love that perspective, and it's interesting as you were talking, the thought came to me that you're right. There will be failures. We will
Of
not
course.
close. We will
Yeah.
not close everything we touch, and not every customer-facing engagement or presentation is going to go wonderfully and magically well. On the flip side, there will be unbelievable victories
Of
and
course.
those incredible moments, and the inspiration that I had as you were talking is that you are never as bad as your failure,
Hmm.
right? And you're never as good as your victory, right? And you're right. The more we can keep a bit of an even keel, right? And it's interesting. I can vividly think back to one of the first demonstrations that I gave about, like when I first got into my career. Look, like many people, I was clueless, right? I mean, I would go in and I would just start showing product, and and I'm sure my sales counterparts are like, nobody really understands what you're talking about here, right? So like it took me probably, let's call it 5 to 6 months to sort of really start to figure this stuff out. In fact, I literally remember the day when the sales leader who I wrote about in the book, who probably 3 or 4 months earlier had told me Nobody knows, nobody has any idea what you're talking about. I
Hmm.
literally remember the trip that I took with him to Omaha, Nebraska, to present to some senior executives in a DoD organization, Department of Defense organization. And after that meeting, we were walking out, and he turned to me and he said, "You know what? That was pretty good. You've
Yeah.
you've come a long way in just a few months. Like
Yeah.
you're starting to figure this out." But after I started figuring it out, and I sort of hit that level, and I was like, I was like knocking them down, and I remember I had this demo that just crashed and burned, and I was just beside myself.
Mm.
And I remember my sales counterpart at the time, and she said, "Look, Chris, you're really good, but you're not gonna win them all. They're just not all gonna go good. They're just not all gonna go great. Just accept it, right?" And I had to come to peace with the fact that, you know what, I'm no better or worse than anybody else. I'm no more or less perfect than anybody else, right? Sometimes you're on, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're gonna kill it, and sometimes you're gonna get killed, right? And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think you used the word humble. I think just having a little bit of humility and accepting that at the end of the day, it's really, like you said, it's about the team around you. It's about learning who you are, and yeah, those you've stirred up a few memories for me that I haven't thought of in quite a while, and I have to say I appreciate you a great deal for doing that.
No, it's not a problem. And I tell you what, I was sorry to interrupt, but it can go away in a flash. The
Mm,
opportunities we get as sales engineers in our careers, it can disappear just like that. So,
mm.
be humble and embrace the buzz, of course, but yeah, just keep learning and keep moving, you
Yeah.
know.
And it's interesting, Rishi. I've actually had people ask me, like, Chris, if you weren't doing, because I'm doing this full time, I'm running workshops full time now. And I've had
Yeah.
people ask me, like, Chris, if you weren't doing that, what would you be? Would you be a lead? Would you want to be a leader? Would you try to be a VP somewhere? Honestly, I'm not sure that the answer is not just put me out in the field.
Hmm.
Give me a good team and a good product and put me out in the field, and just because that's what I love doing. I
Hmm.
I do love I love speaking to customers and demonstrating and pitching and presenting and doing discovery and problem solving and all the things that we do out in the field. You know,
Hmm. Yeah,
so
100%. And I've been lucky enough to work with leaders who are willing to roll their sleeves up. They're there for me as soon as I'm in a sticky situation. They'll just chime in,
yeah,
and you need those people. I mean, it's so refreshing to hear after so many years. How many years have you been in the pre-sales world now? I think it's definitely over 20, 25 years, and you're still willing to go out in the field.
yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I love those stories. I love those stories. So Rishi, we're going to take just a few more minutes, folks. If you have any comments or questions, by all means, chime in. Rishi, I do want to give you a moment to just talk about the Pre-Sales Collective. I know you've been involved for a while. What's going on with PSC, particularly there in London? Do you guys have any events coming up? What's going on?
I tell you what, so in short, I found out about the Pre-Sales Collective around April 2020, and I was like, the way Ultrix way is great. It's absolutely right. And I was
Yeah,
like, I'm looking for a community and network where I can get other perspectives. I want to network with individuals from other companies. We're all like-minded. Came across the Pre-Sales Collective. I was lucky enough to be given the opportunity to effectively revamp the UK and set it up and lead it going forward. And I've got some fantastic leaders as well. So we've got a full leadership team of 5 or 6 of us. And the Pre-Sales Collective is amazing in the UK. The founders, James and Yuji, again, they trust us. We've got a world tour that's going on at the moment. So there's going to be a big event in London on the 12th of April. We're moving from the virtual world to a hybrid world. So we're very active virtually. We're always helping each other out in a safe environment. And I would say it sounds quite corny, but I can't live without the Pre-Sales Collective on a daily basis.
Yeah,
I'm
it's a,
literally there now talking to them. They're like my brothers and sisters at work. In fact, I call James my professional brother, and we are so creative and inspiring for each other. And there's big things to come in the UK. We're doing a lot more in-person events. We
mm,
were previously focused in London, but now we've just gone like you went like that, right? It's just exploded in the UK,
yeah,
and it's great. And I've been helping out, rolling out in the Middle East. We've got great representation in EMEA in France as well. Spain, I can see Amanda's part of the Spanish group as well, and so was Carlos. And it's just amazing.
yeah.
I couldn't find anything prior to the PSC,
Didn't
know,
exist. Yeah. Well, and you
no.
discovered it. You discovered it right when they launched. In fact, I mean, because I had just recently launched my business, and then
Okay.
James and I connected just before they launched, and I was fortunate to be invited to speak at their first webinar, and James and I had a blast with that, and honestly, I mean, they've exploded. I think even faster, certainly faster than what I
Hmm.
thought, and I think to a large degree, faster than what they thought. And yeah, I mean, it's just an amazing community. I mean, it's really
Hmm.
what it is. And look, James and Yuji and the organization and everybody involved, like yourself, the things that are happening, and it's just such a great time to be part of this profession, right? But by the way, Amanda just made a call out, and I just wanted to appreciate her comments and appreciate you being with us, Amanda. It's really nice to hear your words, and I appreciate those comments. Uh, Rishi, if you can believe it, we've been at this now the second time for over 45 minutes. So of course I want to be respectful of your time and let you go here. I think you've got to get your son to an event or go to an event for your son, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Yeah, that's
but
correct.
but I do have just a quick lightning round. Can I ask you to trouble you to stay for just another minute or two
Yeah,
for
of course, of course. I would love to.
okay. So first question in the lightning round,
Hmm.
as you reflect not only on the past 3.5 years, but really on your career.
Hmm.
I call this show now Tech Sales Advice. Is there any advice that you got in particular on your journey that has really stuck with you through the years?
Hmm. I would say there's so many again, right? So be humble, be true to yourself, um, never stop learning. So
Mm,
especially when you're working in the software industry, the software is not going to stand still where it is. You have to keep on learning from a technical perspective, from a soft skill point of view. Talk to anyone and everyone. I literally learn from everyone and anyone, and just be honest to yourself.
yeah,
You can't do everything yourself. So yeah, get help, get support, be humble, be honest, and bring the village. They're all
excellent.
there to help you.
That's fantastic. By the way, Laura and Hercalo, I hope I'm saying that right. Just said a few very nice words. So Laura, I want to just say a quick hello to you as well. Thank you for chiming in. It's always nice to hear folks and see folks chime in. So Rishi, that was question number one. Question number two, and you may have a very similar answer, but if someone were to bump into you and say, "Oh my goodness, Rishi, I just saw you on LinkedIn the other day. I'm about to start my first job as a sales engineer. Any quick advice for me?
I
Anything
would
else you
say
might say that you haven't already covered?"
I would say perception is key. Perception is important, and
Mm,
also confidence. So to gain the perception is very important internally and externally. So with the customer, and also with your sales counterparts. I've had reps who've seen me demo, and they've been like, well, you know what, I don't want to work with Rishi. That demo was appalling. In fact, that demo is actually quite good, and I'm not digging reps, but at the end of the day, you have to be confident. You have
mm,
to have those reasons ready, to help back yourself up to gain that positive perception. Now, use your management. I've worked with some great leaders and managers who will really, really stand up for you. And that's very important as well. And another thing is that, you're going to have to be vulnerable at times, is your first job in pre-sales or as an SE. You can't just come in as a big shot and say, hey, I've been using this software application for a number of years. I can do this. No, I was that technical expert with Ultrix for so many years as a user, but I wasn't a salesperson. So be willing to learn. That's really important, I think.
I mean, I only asked for one piece of advice. I think you unveiled about 5 gems right there.
Oh,
And
thank you.
starting with perception,
Hmm.
you're right. I mean, I'll even say in many cases, or certainly some cases, perception is everything, right?
Hmm.
And the importance of being confident. And it's interesting. You use the word vulnerable. What comes to mind for me is, look, by definition, we are making ourselves vulnerable. Why? There is no place to hide
Of
when
course
the
not. You're fully
spotlight,
exposed.
right? When the spotlight shines on you, right? Your sales counterpart hands you the baton, so to speak, and
Hmm.
it's your moment to present, to demonstrate, to engage. Look, there's
Hmm.
no place to hide,
Hmm.
right? So, I mean, and to me, that's one of the more exciting things about this
Hmm.
job, right? Is that, like, this is not a job for everyone, right? But if you are not only just inspired, but if you get excited about having the opportunity to take the stage, right? Then look, there's no better place. All right, Rishi. Last question in the lightning round, and then we're going to put a bow on our conversation. If you could ask me one question, what might that be?
If you didn't go into pre-sales, what sort of direction or market or industry would you go into?
Fabulous question.
Okay. You can't say pre-sales.
By the way, the reason it's a fabulous question is because I was a consultant. I was an enterprise architecture consultant for 15 years, or at least in that enterprise architecture space. And for quite a few years, I was. And Rishi, I don't know if I said this earlier, folks. Literally, I thought there was something wrong with me because I
Hmm.
was very well paid,
Hmm.
and I was doing exactly what I thought it was that I wanted to do. Yet I wasn't happy,
Hmm.
and I thought there was something wrong with me, and I struggled with, where am I going to go with my career? For quite a few years, I thought I was going to become a financial planner.
Oh,
In
wow.
fact,
Okay.
in fact, I went through the financial plan, like I went through a whole program learning to become a financial planner. And there's a whole certification. I went through the whole certification program,
Hmm.
stopped before I took the the CFP exam, and had some life events happen before I finally, in fact, and because I was still so confused about my career, I actually literally sought professional help. I went
Hmm.
through a professional career development and career counseling program, and literally the guy was like, "There's nothing wrong with you at all. You've just got some skills and natural talents and abilities that need an outlet. And if they don't get an outlet, you're going to be like a caged tiger pacing back and forth, right? And really, and this, honestly, this is what he told me. He said, Chris, you would make an excellent technical spokesperson.
Okay.
That's what he told me. He said, I don't know exactly what that role is, but you'd be a great technical spokesperson. And I said, I know exactly what that role is. And because at the time, I'm not even sure we called it pre-sales. Maybe some people did, but I used to be on the receiving end
Hmm.
of software sales teams coming in to present the solution. There'd be the sales professional who would give his or her pitch, and then there would be the quote engineer who would
Hmm.
demonstrate the product. And I would sit back and go, I want that job. I think, like, that job looks good to me. So anyway,
Yeah.
long-winded answer.
It's a
For
great
a long
answer.
time, I thought I was going to be a financial planner,
Oh,
and
wow.
and
Okay.
so that would have been very much in a different direction. So, but very, very good question. Callum has just a comment for you. Great advice for the new SE. Callum, I couldn't agree more. Rishi, thank you so much for being here, sir. Any closing comments from you before we bid farewell?
Thank you for having me. First of all, this has been speaking to you has been on my bucket list forever. I would just like to say, you know what, we can't achieve everything sometimes, we can't resolve everything. You don't know what you don't know. It's okay to accept it. Reach out to anyone and everyone. So I say this to those joining the SE teams at Ultrix or part of the pre-sales collective. Ask that question. Go and ask for help. We're all here. Message Chris. I'm sure Chris is willing to give some advice. The pre-sales collective have the pre-sales academy as well. And if I had known about the pre-sales academy, to actually go onto the path for the pre-sales profession, I would have done it.
Yeah.
There's so many fantastic tools and resources out there. Everyone's here to help each other out. We're in the same boat, right?
Well said.
Whether you're working for Ultrix, whether you're working for another company, we're all willing to talk to each other and help each other out at the end of the day.
I think that is one of the hallmarks of this community, if I can use that term, the SE profession, the SE community, is we're here for each other. But by the way, my friend Tony Franchetti says the 6 habits of highly effective financial planners. That's classic. Tony, it's good to see you, buddy. Thanks for chiming in. Rishi, thank you again. Really appreciate
Thank you.
And Rishi, let's just thank the folks that managed to rejoin us. For those of you who didn't happen to hear or know, Rishi and I first launched our LinkedIn Live together. We literally had a technical difficulty about 5 or 6 minutes in, and managed to restart and relaunch. So if you did rejoin us, thank you so much for coming back. And Rishi, good on you for not being thrown too far off your game. Look, that's a difficult thing. I mean, as a sales engineer, right? You're put in the spotlight, and then the lights come crashing down on you, so to speak. So good on you for rolling with the punches, folks. Thank you so much for joining. Happy St. Patrick's Day, folks. And again, folks, if any of you want to follow these, just go to the hashtag Tech Sales Advice. Follow the hashtag. You can see all these videos, and you'll be, alerted whenever we run one of these again. Rishi, thank you so much, sir. Have a good year, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to everyone who's joined us today.
Indeed. Cheers all. Rishi,
Thank
hang
you.
around for a minute. We'll chat after the fact. Bye, all.
I will do.